Welcome to the Candidates Forum for Sunnyvale Mayor. We have two candidates joining us. My name is Elaine Manley. I'm from the League of Women Voters, and I'm the co-president and get to be the moderator this evening still. And we have the joy of co-hosting this with SNAIL. Thank you so much. And the Sunnyvale Mobile Home Community, or Alliance, excuse me. And we greatly appreciate that Sunnyvale Community Services has offered their facilities and really appreciate them letting us be here. So our forum today is going to run about 90 minutes. And we do, as you can tell, the next slide, whoever's doing the slides for me, the Zoom audience will be muted, but the live audience, I can't mute you, and I don't want to mute you, but I do need to ask, please try to refrain from any loud comments or clapping because people have different viewpoints and we don't really, we just want to make it a safe space, you know? So appreciate you understanding that. The recording is going to be available on lwvcs.org, and we have a whole election forums page for all of the forums that we're doing. So I'll refer to that a couple of times. Let's see, I believe we can go on to that next slide. I do want to just explain a little bit about the league. We've been around for 104 years. We're getting older by the day, and that's a good thing. We are a nonpartisan organization. We don't support candidates or oppose them. We just want to provide a space where voters can become educated and learn about the candidates, learn about ballot measures, things like that. We have a second corporation that deals with action and advocacy. It is a separate corporation. It is never mixed, but we'll study issues and we will make a decision to take a position for or against a ballot measure. So you may see the league on some of the ballot measures. Last but not least, we are an unpaid group. We're all volunteer and we would love to have you all join us. So just thought I'd put that out there. Good. All right, next slide. We used to have a website called Voters Edge, and that was only for California. Well, the league at the national level said, why don't you join the national version? And that's called Vote 411. So we are now part of vote411.org, and all of the ballot measure information and candidate information is now on vote411.org. And I'm thrilled to tell you that both of the candidates have entered their information, so you can learn more about them at that website. And you just click on California and you see put in your address and then click find what's on your ballot, and it'll have all your personal ballot information. Great resource for you. All right, on our next slide, a couple of things to talk about on the voting. As you know, California is all vote by mail now. We have the ability, well, I guess starting in 29 days before the election, the ballots come out, but we have the ability to return the ballots 3 different ways. One is by mail. Got to make sure that it gets postmarked, make sure that you've signed and dated it. Second is put it in a box. Put it in the drop box. And then the third one is take it to a vote center and drop it off in a vote center. So several ways to get it there, whatever you feel most comfortable. Obviously, if you vote a little earlier, then you don't have to worry about the November 5th. The next part of that slide talks about rovservices.sccgov.org. They've done a really good job at the county for the registrar of voters to give you a lot of information. So please pay attention to that website as well. You can track your ballot to make sure that it's been received. If you have a problem with your ballot, you made a mistake, you need a new ballot, you can contact the ROV or you can go to a vote center to do that. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So the vote center, you can drop off your ballot, you can get that replacement, you can register to vote, and they've got 14 different languages. So if people need a different language, they do their very best to accommodate everyone. We really want your vote to count. So please, once again, remember, you've got to do it properly. It's got to be with black or blue pen. You have to only vote for the number authorized to vote for. So in the mayor, you only get to pick one. You probably know that, but there are some offices that you'll pick 2, but not for mayor. The ballot needs to go in the return envelope. Once again, sign and date it. You write your address. That is really key. And your signature should really match what's on your driver's license. Okay, good. All right, next slide. Beautiful. So now, as you know, mayor doesn't worry about the districts. It is all inclusive. So every district gets to vote for the mayor. I think it's helpful to see where the district lines are because we do have the elections for District 2, 4, and 6. So mayor, everybody gets to vote. And you can see if you're trying to find your district, there's a website there that you can look up your district. All right, next slide, please. Fabulous. So as you know, there are two candidates running for Sunnyvale mayor, and the candidates have agreed to the format and ground rules of today's forum. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions and we'll rotate who's going to go first. And they will each have a certain response time. The vast majority of the time it will be 60 seconds, and we have a timekeeper right here that will help them keep track of the time. Every so often we've got a couple of questions that are beefier. We're giving 90 seconds to answer those. And then we had a couple of questions that were pretty light, and we went with 30 seconds on those. So it should be a great conversation. I do need to say, the candidates and the public, if you choose to reference the recording of the forum, do please do it in its entirety, not just a snippet of it. This is a federal rule from the Federal Election Commission. Let's see here. So the candidates, if I may borrow your card, they each have a rebuttal card, red card. So 30 seconds, if they say, they hear something, go, I'd like to speak to that. They lift their card up. We will grant them 30 seconds after that other candidate has finished their statement, and they get a total of 3. And I know these gentlemen will be very civil in their rebuttal, so I have no worries about civil discourse in this environment. And let's see, just before we started the forum, we gave the candidates the very first question, and we gave them the very last question. They don't know any of the other questions. So we had to draw to see who gets to go first on the questions. And the drawing turns out that Larry, you will go first, and then Russ will follow with you. And then for the next question, we'll go to Russ and back to Larry and vice versa. So here we go. We're going to get started. Larry, yes, exactly. Power it on. Make sure it's working. There it is. Perfect. So you've got 60 seconds. Why are you qualified to be our mayor?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks to the League of Women Voters, SNAIL, and of course, the Sunnyvale Mobile Home Alliance for sponsoring this. For me, I'm the incumbent mayor. I made this job my full-time job when I got laid off from my day job 3 years ago. And I love Sunnyvale. I love what I've been able to do over the last, 6 years as mayor and over 8 years on council. I've been giving back to the city for over 20 years. When the vision for downtown was being defined, I got involved. I made sure that that vision is good. And for me, I've been championing unhoused response, championing our downtown, more housing, and my power is ultimately being able to collaborate. I have the support of our federal, state, and local leaders, the majority of council, and I focus on diversity within our community and partnership, and that's ultimately why I am successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Melton.
Thanks, Larry. Thank you, everybody. I'm Russ Melton. I'm your Sunnyvale City Council member representing District 4. It's great to be here tonight. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and to the League of Women Voters for putting on this event tonight. I also want to say thank you to SNAIL and the Sunnyvale Mobile Home Alliance. Just fantastic to be here. Words that are used to describe me, people say Russ is pragmatic. Russ is a straight talker. Russ brings common sense solutions that Sunnyvale residents demand, and I build collaborations that get things done. I love campaigning. I love Sunnyvale. During this political campaign, I've been precinct walking. I've dropped off over 5,000 flyers on folks' front doors. Maybe some folks in this room have received them. I've had 1,000 conversations with Sunnyvale residents at their front doors. So I feel like I have a good pulse of the community. Just yesterday, I was talking to somebody and they said, "Where do I get information?" And I said, "Vote 411." Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question is also 60 seconds. Russ, you'll be going first. And the question is, please share your top 3 priorities for Sunnyvale, and please be specific.
Okay, so my priorities for Sunnyvale, number 1 is safe and secure Sunnyvale. I believe that we need more cops in Sunnyvale for things like burglary suppression and for safe routes to school and additional traffic enforcement. I hear this all the time when I'm talking to residents. My number 2 priority is efficient delivery of government services, spending tax dollars wisely. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild our infrastructure, take care of our streets, our trees, our sewer lines, our sidewalks. And then my number 3 priority is coming to a common sense solution for our homeless problem. And that means working to come up with solutions that do not drain the city's general fund. We're not just going to throw money at the problem. So those are my top 3 priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes, my top 3 priorities are around housing affordability. Definitely what we're seeing right now is a crisis of affordability from a housing standpoint, and I have plans to focus on multifamily development, on spreading ADUs throughout our single family neighborhoods. I've been partnering with affordable housing developers for years, and we're starting to see success. From a city standpoint, buying property and trying to make sure that that's there. My second priority is active transportation and safer streets. We need to make sure that people can get out of their cars, not just for reducing greenhouse gases, but making sure that our residents and our students feel safe to get to school, to get to work, to get to businesses. And finally, the response from homelessness. It's homelessness prevention is key, and making sure that we're funding organizations like Sunnyvale Community Services, but treating homelessness with humanity, making sure that we have those services that those homeless need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Larry will begin, and it's 60 seconds. The question is, Sunnyvale is a great place to live, but we still have problems. How would you address issues like break-ins, theft, illegal fireworks, etc.?
Sure. So the issue of public safety is a big one. And right now, this year we actually gave 3 new public safety officers, additional staff to our public safety department. And then it's giving public safety the right tools. So it's giving them, with this year's budget, we gave them a new drone, but more importantly, we did license plate readers. And so license plate readers have now been installed almost everywhere. Caltrans is still doing some final approval, but trying to deal with the regional crime. A lot of our crime in our community are gangs or people that are coming from outside of our community coming in. And the license plate readers will give our public safety officers the right tools to, for one thing, do better response, but then work regionally to make sure that when there's sideshows coming into our community, when there's people doing catalytic converter theft, we are prepared. We can see those license plates and immediately ping public safety when we know that those people are coming into our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a very important question, and I'll start off by saying, thanks, Tara. I appreciate that. I'll start off by saying I'm the only candidate running for mayor that is endorsed by Sheriff Bob Johnson and endorsed by Sunnyvale's Public Safety Officers Association, because they know my number 1 priority is safe and secure Sunnyvale. Earlier this year, I sponsored a proposal to make a full-time 5-officer burglary suppression unit in Sunnyvale. These officers would focus on very difficult crimes that include catalytic converter theft, package theft, takeover jewelry, heist robberies, jewelry snatching, some very difficult property crimes that we're experiencing more of in Sunnyvale. My proposal was supported by the city manager, but unfortunately did not make it across the city line at city council. So if I'm elected mayor, you can count on proposals like that for safe and secure Sunnyvale coming back. Also, please vote yes on Prop 36. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is a 90-second answer, and we'll start with Russ. The debate on growth and housing continues in Sunnyvale. Concerns about growth include how to maintain the style of life that has drawn people to Sunnyvale, traffic congestion, water use, tree planting and maintenance, and more. On the other side is the real need to meet the legal state mandated growth in housing. What do you think should be done to balance all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Elaine. That's an age-old question in a growing city like Sunnyvale. It's all about balance. And so In Sunnyvale, I'm proud to have served on city council while we tackled the first part of the question, which is the need for more housing. And so on city council, I voted for upzoning for more housing and affordable housing in transit-rich areas of the city. That includes Lawrence Station Area Plan, it includes downtown, it includes El Camino Real, and our most recent success was in Moffett Park, where over the next 2 decades, we've upzoned for up to 20,000 new housing units. So these are important steps that we have to take. The next step is, if you know that your city is going to be growing, what do you do to manage that growth? And I believe that we have a robust enough tax base that without raising taxes, we'll be able to take care of our infrastructure, and we're going to be able to take care of our needs for additional employees. I've already talked about the need for more police and firefighters in Sunnyvale. And again, I'll just reemphasize, I hear that all the time, the need for more traffic management and traffic enforcement. And then we're going to keep up on our infrastructure, such as growing our network for recycled water, a very important topic in Sunnyvale. So these are the sorts of growth and balanced management that we have in Sunnyvale. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yeah, so as you have a growing city, and we're lucky to have a vibrant growing city, and the priority for council is to have that long-term vision. 20 years ago, it was envisioning Moffett Park, and at that point, we didn't add housing. Now, of course, it's like 20,000 units of housing, but more importantly, retail, walkable communities. Those are what, a long-term vision is critical from a city standpoint. And, from a long-term standpoint, it's making sure that we provide all the services. I've heard about traffic issues in my previous 3 campaigns on council, and that's one of the reasons why I'm such an advocate for active transportation, but more importantly, a citywide shuttle. I've been a champion to get people out of their cars to try to make sure that, seniors that can't drive at night and might be not comfortable driving here for this forum, or high school students can actually stay after school and utilize those programs. For me, it's providing all those services, whether or not it is open space. And we've had multiple open space availability of adding additional parks, adding additional open space, extending Stevens Creek Trail, Evelyn Trail. Those are things that we need to do. And of course, it's making sure our wastewater treatment plant, we can deal with sewage. We're redoing our smart station, making sure that all the services that we're providing from a city are there is a critical option. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. All right, our next question is 90 seconds, and this is on the village centers. So we'll now talk about local economic contribution. Originally, village centers were supposed to provide retail to support that village. Local grocery stores and restaurants will be forced to close with the new village centers, creating this food desert. The benefit of locally owned businesses is they normally source goods and services from other nearby businesses and reinvest profits locally, whereas chain restaurants and stores may not use local resources and their profits tend to flow outside our city. What will you do to protect and increase the number of local small grocery stores and retail stores in the neighborhood villages?
Sure. So I'm a big small business advocate. One of the things that I did under COVID was the Mayor's Restaurant Project. If you go to eatsunnyvale.com, I highlighted during COVID and since COVID began, over 250 different restaurants in the city, and those are mainly mom and pop, and even chain restaurants are usually family run and owned within our community. But as far as the village centers are concerned, one of the things that we envisioned was a great idea, exactly what you see in downtown, on downtown Murphy Avenue. It's that mixture of retail with housing or office space above. And that was our vision for village centers when we came up with this idea years ago. That being said, the state, seeing that there is a housing crisis, in their good intentions, said that developers can do concessions and waivers on any project and override what the city requirements are. And that's one of the things that we're doing from a city standpoint right now, looking to rezone those village centers to make sure that it makes it more likely that they're stacked flats as opposed to townhomes, and ultimately having retail, making retail more advantageous as far as that's concerned. But we're looking to fight what some of the developers doing. I met with our state senator Wahab last week talking about what we can do to resolve some of the issues that SB 330 did. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, thank you. Elaine, this is a great question, very important. And I'll just remind folks, I've had over 1,000 front door conversations with Sunnyvale residents, including District 5 and District 6. Now, it depends on where you are in Sunnyvale. They say all politics is local, but I'm here to tell you a top 3 question in District 5 and District 6 is, Russ, what are you going to do about the village center projects at Duane and Lakewood, because I'm worried that developers are going to come in and obliterate the retail that is there today. And that's very important retail to me. And my response is as follows. Look, the first iteration of this story that we heard of a developer coming to city council on a village center project was on Fremont Corners 2. Folks may know Fremont Corners 2 is kitty corner to Fremont High School, and the developer, just as was said, wanted to activate some of these exclusions and waivers from SB 330. Our city staff said, we're going to approve, Mr. Developer, a project that is good for Sunnyvale. Our planning commission backed up our city staff on Fremont Corners, and they said, yeah, we approve this project that is good for Sunnyvale. And I voted on city council to back up the planning commission and city staff. So I can tell residents I'm the guy with the spine to fight the developer on Duane and Lakewood, because I've done it already on Fremont Corners too. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is back to 60 seconds. And Russ, we'll start with you. On village centers specifically, do you support increasing the density in the remaining village center sites? And what zoning density do you think will meet the desired development of housing and retail on the remaining village centers?
Yeah, great question. Here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. The city of Sunnyvale put in a tremendous amount of hard work to get our housing element across the finish line. And a lot of this is specified in the housing element. Elaine, to answer your question, yes, I support the upzoning of the village centers because it's the right thing to do. First of all, to incentivize developers to build the right kind of housing where they can make a profit, a reasonable profit, and get it across the finish line. But that also will eliminate the potential for a claim of an exemption or a waiver because they can't make enough profit. It's the right thing to do, and all of the zoning is specified in our housing element, which I voted to support. So thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes, upzoning is the critical portion here. It's incentivizing, much like we did at the AMD campus. We basically worked with Irvine Development to say, we'll give you additional density if you give us a 6.5 acre park. And that's the critical thing, is trying to make sure that you have that negotiation. So upzoning the village centers, giving them a little more height, conceivably makes it that much more beneficial for them to deal with the retail on the first floor. And that's what we envisioned to begin with. So upzoning to at least 38 units an acre, figuring out what we can do to make sure that that it works out for a developer to build the right type of housing that we envisioned initially. And so from a city standpoint, we're looking at making sure that that's objective, but then creating those incentives to make sure that developers do what's in everyone's best interest, their residents, the residents that are already in that community, and of course the retail that we need to keep in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. So Larry, we'll start with you. This one is also 60 seconds. How can we make it safer and easier for students of all ages to get to and from school? Walking, biking, shuttles, VTA, etc.
Absolutely. So this is one of my main causes is to implement our active transportation plan. And we've made progress, but we need to move faster. For me, I'm an avid runner, I'm an avid biker, but implementing our safe routes to schools is critical. It's and working in the last year. A year ago, I worked with Fremont Union High School District and VTA to make the VTA bus service for the high school students in North Sunnyvale more active and more available. And, ultimately that gets them, and Fremont Union High School District actually said, we'll give you free bus passes to all those students. That was a big win. We're not there yet. And of course, you have the middle school and elementary school students that need safer biking. And then, of course, it's the city shuttle. That is critical. That will make a big difference for those high school students and working parents that can't deal with getting their kids home at a later night, a later time of the evening. So all those things will make our community safer.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, thank you. So I have two kids, and they go to Fremont High School. When they were younger, they went to Cupertino Middle School, and they had a long way to go from my house in District 4 to bicycle every day to CMS. They had to get across Wolf. They had to get across Mary. They had to get across Hollenbeck. And I'm absolutely serious when I say when they wheeled off of my driveway, every morning I would turn my attention to the heavens and say a quick prayer for my kids' safe delivery at their intended destination. And when I'm precinct walking and talking to parents, ladies and gentlemen, safe routes to school is a #1 priority. People are worried about the safety of their children getting to and from school. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hire 2 more traffic cops for greater enforcement here in the city of Sunnyvale. And then by golly, we're going to get to it on the active transportation and the Vision Zero plan. City Council loves to tinker and jump in with different ideas, but we're just going to unleash Public Works to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next question is 60 seconds, and we'll start with you, Russ. What is your position on using artificial turf in city parks? Why? And what are the key pros and cons from your perspective?
Yeah, so great question. Maybe, Elaine, this could have been a 90-second question because we've had some legendary meetings at City Hall on this topic. The conclusion that we came to was we have time. We have a couple of years before the city of Sunnyvale is even scheduled to try to implement a new field in Sunnyvale, whether it's natural grass or artificial turf. So we decided we're going to take the time to study the merits or demerits of artificial turf. And we're also going to take the time to look at what does it take to maintain our natural grass fields to the level of quality that are demanded by our residents. And I voted for that. I think that was a great way to proceed. I'm going to withhold judgment on the merits or demerits of artificial turf until we get the study from the professionals, but I'm very excited about the prospect of better management of our natural grass fields. That's where I would like to end up, as long as we can get to a point where we meet the demands of our residents. So thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes, so as Russ said, definitely we've been had some long meetings on this topic, whether or not it was the Lakewood park renovation or whether or not it was just talking about what we want to do from a city standpoint of trying to figure out whether or not we intermittently ban the use of artificial turf until the study is complete. We kicked off, for this year's fiscal budget, we kicked off a study. We funded a study that will take 18 months to 2 years. And for me, I thought it was important to put a stake in the ground that we wouldn't add any artificial turf at any of our park renovations until that study was complete. I thought it was the right environmental thing to do. And there's a lot of misinformation that we would be ripping up Fair Oaks Park. That wasn't the case. The Fair Oaks Park is a jewel as far as that's concerned, and it's important to have that availability from our schools and from our teens and from all the different athletic fields. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question is only 30 seconds to answer. A shuttle service is starting in Perry Park. What are the possibilities of expanding that to the rest of the city?
Thank you. For me, that's one of the things that I've been trying to get moving forward for over a year. A year ago, SV Hopper started in Cupertino. This year, it joined in Santa Clara. I tried to get the city manager to join that effort a year ago. We finally brought it in front of council today, or this year. And one of the things that, beyond the Perry Park Rides program, we've applied for an EPA grant, as well as joining conceivably the SV Hopper. So for me, I think it is a possibility sometime in the near future.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, very enthusiastic about the prospects of either Silicon Valley Hopper or the Peary Park Shuttle expanding through the city of Sunnyvale. The twist that I'll add to it is I would like to see the Fremont Union High School District participate financially in whatever the financial formula turns out to be to get this implemented. And I'd like to hold VTA to a little bit more account for their responsibilities as our traffic congestion management agency and service provider for mass transit. They need to do a better job for Sunnyvale. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Russ, you'll go next on this question. 60 seconds to answer it. Transportation is a concern in Sunnyvale. Where would you put your emphasis? Emphasizing on the VTA or pedestrian bicycle routes, intersections, shuttles? And please be specific.
Sure, happy to. Any of my homies here in District 4, you know who you are. We have been waiting and waiting for roadway improvements to Wolf Road on the stretch between El Camino and Homestead, with a lot of precedent projects that have taken place. Finally, at last, glorious resurfacing of Wolf Road, which is a major transportation corridor in the city of Sunnyvale, and it needs to be a high-performing, high-functioning road. So really glad to see that happen. And I am very cognizant of the need to have a high-performing roadway network. That said, we have a Vision Zero plan in Sunnyvale for roadway safety. We have an active transportation plan, multiple hundreds of pages long that talk about different discrete projects for bicycle infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, and for safe routes to school. And we need to get to the point where at last we unleash the mighty power of our public works department to get it done.
Thank you. Thank you. Larry?
Thank you. And, ultimately, from my standpoint, transportation should be funded by VTA. For every sales tax dollar, they get 1 cent and the city gets 1 cent. They don't spend that money here just barely at the end of the day. From a city standpoint, we spend our dollars and try to get matching funds from the state, from the federal government. I've been happy to utilize my advocacy and my network of elected supporters at the state level, at the federal level, to get expansion of the Evelyn Trail that was funded by Senator Becker. Congressman Khanna helping with the Stevens Creek Trail. It's getting those active transportation options available. Assemblymember Lowe helped with the Lakewood Safe Routes to Schools. That is what we need to do. We need to implement our active transportation plan. We can't do it alone. We need to be able to leverage other grants and other funding, but ultimately that's what we need to do as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Next question will be 60 seconds long. And Larry, you'll start first. There is a lot of emphasis for safety for bikes and bike lanes, and not much on sidewalks and crosswalks for seniors and others that need to walk safely. What is your strategy for clearing the backlog for sidewalk repairs, considering that aging population? And how can we improve the location and safety of sidewalks as well?
Sure. So from a city standpoint, we have an aging sidewalk issue with throughout the city. That being said, we do that on ourselves. We do those repairs from a city standpoint, unlike San Jose, which ultimately has their residents pay for any sidewalk repairs. One of the things that we did from a budgetary standpoint this year, or in the last fiscal year, is try to deal with the backlog of 2 years of tree trimming. Ultimately, I've been working with other council members, and that's how you move these things forward to try to deal with the same backlog of sidewalk repairs. And there's an equity issue that residents in North Sunnyvale haven't been the complainers, and for that reason, they often aren't on the list for sidewalk repairs. And I've been talking to the city manager on how we can look at that more from an equity standpoint to make sure that the neighborhoods in North Sunnyvale ultimately get their sidewalks repaired ahead of as soon as they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I'm glad we're continuing to talk about this topic from the active transportation plan and the Vision Zero plan. So ladies and gentlemen, later this year on City Council's agenda will be a discussion to modify one sentence one sentence in our Vision Zero plan. This takes time away from our city manager, from our city staff, from the Public Works Department. We need to be focused on accomplishing the things that are laid out, including our plan for pedestrian mobility and our active transportation plan. These are the sorts of common sense solutions I think that Sunnyvale residents demand, that I keep talking about and bringing to the table. Also, let's talk about the pylons. Everybody here has seen the pylons, right? On corners, near schools. This is the spirit of innovation in the city of Sunnyvale. You may agree or disagree with the pylons, but they are movable, they are adjustable, and I just love the fact that Sunnyvale is trying different things to make the city better for our pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Russ, you'll go first on this one, and it's 60 seconds. Sunnyvale's budget process is a point of pride. Are there any changes or improvements you would make to the process?
I love Sunnyvale's budget process deeply. We have a budget surplus in the city of Sunnyvale that is directly attributable to our budget process, which has a charter requirement for a 10-year balanced budget augmented by a city council policy for balanced all the way through year 20. So we start every fiscal cycle with healthy reserves and a strong budget. I don't really see any major changes in that. As a matter of fact, I would oppose any sort of charter amendment or changes to the requirement for a 20-year balanced budget. Our study issue process probably could use some tweaking around the edges to make it move with a little bit more alacrity, but overall, our study issue process as part of the budget process keeps council and keeps the city focused. So I think even that's a great program for Sunnyvale. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you very much. As was said, Sunnyvale is ultimately in great fiscal in fiscal shape and came out of COVID far better than a lot of the cities around us. We were able to add 27 new employees this year because we took steps to tighten our belt during COVID. That being said, there are conceivable improvements. From a charter standpoint, we're in a fantastic process of that 20-year plan and 10-year balanced budget. There's no need to change that. That being said, there's a lot of value conceivably in having more resident participation. Lots of cities around the nation have a certain amount of money that conceivably residents give feedback on what they want to prioritize. And not that they couldn't do that in the current process, but having a group of select residents that really understand the budget and creating a committee to make recommendations for direction of a certain amount of money would actually be beneficial from a city standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. So Larry, you'll go first on this one, 60 seconds to answer. What is one thing Sunnyvale is funding that you would work to stop funding if elected?
As far as stopping funding, we have that opportunity every year. From a city standpoint, what we end up funding from a study issue standpoint is one of the important things. We need to evaluate our study issues on a yearly basis. There are studies that have been kicked off that much like the high school, the potential work on study issues for high school students that we have other solutions on. So reevaluating study issues is one of the important things. But from a city standpoint, that long-term fiscal strategy means that once council makes decisions, things go in the right direction. And I think that the city has a lot of value on the policies that we already have in place. So saying that I would like to pull things back, that's not an easy thing because we put a lot of thought into our budget on a yearly basis, and council agrees to where we are for the following year. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. That's a really thought-provoking question. And I agree with how we get to where we are annually with regards to our budget. You know, the vast predominance of the city's general fund is spent on employees, our incredible employees. And I'm just here to say I would never talk about making any changes. As a matter of fact, as I've said, we need more cops. We need more employees in the city of Sunnyvale to help manage growth in the city. I have spent time in the past looking through the general fund for opportunities to reallocate dollars. I would say it would be more of a reprioritization, Elaine, than cutting projects. And I don't really have anything that comes to mind that I would say would be a definite thing for reallocation, although I'd be happy to listen to any of my colleagues or the community for thoughts they have about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ, you'll go first on this one, and it's 60 seconds. What strategies would you prioritize for addressing and supporting unhoused populations?
Oh yeah. So here's what we're going to do. The best case to talk about is RV parking. So we know for a fact that some of our unhoused residents will live in RVs that are parked on our residential streets, right? That's a reality that happens in Sunnyvale today. So we're going to take a two-step process to focus on this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our safe RV parking program across the finish line. And this will be locations where RVs can go to park if their RV is registered, if their RV has insurance, if it's operable per DMV standards. And we're going to provide a legitimate place with security, running water, sewer dump, social services for these vehicles and their occupants to go safely. And then, and only then, we're going to increase abatement of illegally parked RVs on our residential streets. It's a two-step solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry.
Yeah, so getting, unhoused response is critical from a city standpoint. It's something that we've actually finally been able to fund, in a better way this year. Ultimately doing that community outreach through We Hope. And it's 5 people that are working doing outreach in our community with the unhoused. But what's higher priority is homelessness prevention. It's funding Sunnyvale Community Services so that people that are in their home aren't being kicked out on the streets, because once they're out on the streets, it's that much harder to get back into permanent housing. So that's a priority. It's working with the county, the shelter, the Hamlin shelter will soon be mainly families, and you consider families living in cars is unconscionable for kids trying to go to school that are living in their car every night. So, the cities has the safe RV study issue that's coming back later this year. We're looking at other options, but it's providing homelessness humanely and dignity from a city standpoint.
Thank you. Larry, you're first on this next question, and it is a 90-second answer. Sunnyvale is considering the implementation of a basic income program. What do you think are the pros and cons, as well as how will it be funded? Also, how would you measure the effectiveness and sustainability of the program?
Sure. So for me, I'm a mayor for GBI, for Guaranteed Basic Income. I do think, looking at other cities around the nation, there have been some great studies shown that this actually makes a difference. And when you look at, some of the homelessness prevention of the funding that we do for people that are barely making their rents, what Sunnyvale Community Services is doing is almost GBI, but what GBI programs allow is a lot more flexibility. And it's what the big thing is, who is eligible. And that'll be one of the big issues when it comes to council, is to figure out who is the eligible participants. And, I'm a big proponent for working parents, a parent who's going through college, helping them make ends meet, whether or not that's food, whether or not that's childcare. It's trying to make sure that they can get by just a little bit better. And from a city standpoint, the pros and cons, there's lots of pros and cons. The biggest issue is, from a con standpoint, is how we fund it. The thing is, once we make a decision from a council standpoint that it will be funded, ultimately, then we start looking at for whether or not there are philanthropic organizations out there to meet some of our dollars that we can do so. And the pro is we're making a difference in a working family's life that conceivably is life changing. And some of the requirements is it can't be permanent. There has to be some deadline as far as that's concerned. But that's why we have the study issue process, and I look forward to that coming back to council.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, right on. So here's what I've said about guaranteed basic income in Sunnyvale. First, when the concept was brought to City Council, there was a notion that there would be some sort of grant funding from the state of California. I'm not sure that exists anymore. So Elaine, your question about how this would be financed, does it come from the general fund? Does it come from charitable grants? Does it come out of our budget surplus? These are all questions that are going to have to be answered. But I'm here to tell you, I have said into a microphone at City Council on more than one occasion my belief that any benefits under UBI should be directed at the very youngest of children. I'm talking newborn to age 3. Get our youngest Sunnyvale children off to a great start in their life. And the way I envision this happening is that UBI would be in the form of gift cards to Sunnyvale Target right here in downtown Sunnyvale. And if you're a parent with a newborn child, you go to Sunnyvale Target, you can get diapers, you can get formula, you can get clothes. And by the way, anything that registers for sales tax would find its way back to Sunnyvale and potentially go back into the UBI program. The question of qualification, I also think, is a very important one. And I've said in the past, we need to have equal distribution of benefits across all 6 city council districts in the city of Sunnyvale. So this is not going to be a program that channelizes dollars to any one neighborhood in Sunnyvale. We're going to cover all of Sunnyvale. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a rebuttal card. So timekeeper, we've got 30 seconds on the clock. Larry?
Thank you. And as much as, UBI is, what Russ just said of trying to make it district specific, it's a need, and it's trying to figure out where that need is in the city. And is it one district versus another district? We're not set up from that. We have policy to make sure that council doesn't look specifically at their own district. And from a financing standpoint, to me, that's a slippery slope. And it's trying to have Sunnyvale Community Services figure out what that need is throughout our community. So I would be very much against district programming.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the next question. And Russ, you will go first. It is 60 seconds to answer. What type of safe parking solutions do you support and why?
Yeah, that's a great question, Elaine. Well, we talked already about safe RV parking, so I can augment what I've said there to talk about safe car parking. Some of the things that would be consistent to what I said about safe RV parking is that for a car to be parked in this location, it must be registered, up to date with the DMV. It must have valid insurance. It must be operable per DMV requirements. And then the location is going to have the same sort of benefits available in terms of safety, running water, sewer dump, social services. I will say, whatever location the city may propose, which may very well be in District 4 on a familiar location off of Dunford Avenue, it's going to spark some controversy in the neighborhood. And so outreach for whatever solutions we come up with is going to be very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Sure. So from type standpoint, first, we need to look at whether or not it's city-owned property or churches. We've already been looking at partnering with churches to have, safe RV, safe car parking, and then it's the services we provide there. And I've toured multiple sites. Mountain View has some great sites, Palo Alto, looking at, what the impacts of having RVs and cars on those sites are for the surrounding communities. And it's providing showers, it's providing bathrooms. That's kind of step one. But it's also electricity. I see far too many 2-stroke generators at some of these sites, and what that does from an air quality standpoint, what that does from our greenhouse gas emission standpoint isn't good for the city. So it's figuring out what the policies are, what security is provided, and ultimately how to best manage these. And so there's lots of things to work out. I look forward to see what our policy is when that study issue comes back to council. But I do think that it is yet another solution within our city that we should be funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, you'll go first on this one. It is a 30-second answer. Are the 2 city golf courses sustainable? And how do the golf courses contribute to the city?
So from my standpoint, they are sustainable. You know, what when if you actually converted that into open space, it would actually cost the city a lot more. You know, what we found, and one of the positive things out of COVID, a lot more people golf. And also Santa Clara closed their golf course. From that standpoint, you know, we actually almost break even at the golf courses, and we have to invest in infrastructure. You know, some of the buildings weren't put on our long-term vision, but ultimately golf has residents here in the city that utilize it, and we should fund it.
Thank you. Russ?
Thank you. And I'll say thank you to my colleague Larry Klein here for kicking this off. Elaine, this probably should have been more like a 90-second question based on, all the discussions that happen at City Hall. So I heard the question, is Sunnyvale Golf Courses sustainable? The answer is yes. They're getting close to profitability for the reasons that the mayor mentioned. And we did a big consultant report a couple of years ago where the number one finding was, Sunnyvale, you must invest in your golf courses to keep them viable. And the virtuous cycle is profitability equals more investment equals sustainability of our golf courses. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question is back to 60 seconds for the answer, and we'll start with Russ. Explain how you support the revised climate action plan and champion regional climate change initiatives.
Love the climate action plan. We have phenomenal staff in the city of Sunnyvale that work very hard on the CAP. There are two things in there that are just I'm so passionate about. Number one, the CAP talks about Sunnyvale, you got to get with it on implementing the active transportation plan. I've already talked about that. Number two, Sunnyvale, you need to get with it and implement recycled water and better treatment of your sewer effluent in terms of recycling back into water and blending that into your potable water supply. So I've been a huge champion in terms of our rebuild of our sewer treatment plant in North Sunnyvale to make sure that when it's rebuilt, it includes advanced capabilities for advanced ultra purified water for both our recycled water network, but also for potential blending into our potable water supply down the road. These are the things that I love about our climate action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes, our climate action playbook for 2028, so for the next 5 years or 4 years or so, has a lot of options. You know, there's, I think, 28 different moves from a city standpoint. To me, the biggest things are related to transportation. And, calling out specifically a citywide shuttle, implementing our active transportation plan. But the other half of that is electrifying everything. I am executive chair of the chair of the executive board for Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And one of the big things that SVCE does is help to decarbonize buildings. Last year, they decarbonized Vargas Elementary, and it's pilot programs like that they're working to decarbonize our apartment buildings. So looking at partnering with MidPen, trying to add more EV chargers throughout our community, trying to make sure they're heat pumps, whatever we can do. And all these are part of that plan to make sure that we are leading the nation in sustainability.
Thank you. All right, next question. It starts with Larry, and it is 60 seconds. We're going to talk a little bit about the ballot measures. So Prop 4 asks the voters, should the state of California issue $10 billion in bonds to fund state and local parks, environmental protection projects, water infrastructure projects, energy projects, and flood protection projects? Do you support or oppose Prop 4, and why?
So I support Prop 4. It is a climate action bond at the end of the day. It's $10 billion. And, hopefully Sunnyvale would get a portion of that for some of the programs that I was just talking about. We'll see where it goes from a resident standpoint, around the state. We have the two $10 billion bonds from a Prop 2 and Prop 4 standpoint on the state ballot. I do think that our legislature was a little short-sighted in funding some of the the climate action measures that they were trying to do in this year's budget. They basically took a step back on what they had committed to. This is in response to that. This is ultimately saying, let the taxpayers do a bond, and hopefully it will pass, as opposed to doing the appropriate fiscal planning from a state standpoint. So I support it. I hope it passes. I hope that Sunnyvale gets a good share of that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. I support Prop 4. City Council looked at it on Tuesday night. We support Prop 4, as well as a host of other propositions that you'll be seeing on your ballot. It will be the familiar ocean of ballot measures that you have to sift through and make your family's decisions on. I'm a big infrastructure guy. I would concur with what's been said, that the preferable way to do infrastructure is to save up your dollars and then move forward on smaller projects. But sometimes the really big ones, and I'm thinking about like Measure E for a new library in Sunnyvale, sometimes the superior course of action is to issue a bond. So my answer to the question, Elaine, is I'm in support of Prop 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ, we'll continue with you, and you've got 60 seconds on this next question. Prop 5 asks voters, should local bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure approval rate drop from 2/3 to 55%? Do you support or oppose Prop 5, and why?
Support Prop 5. We talked about this one as well on Tuesday night. And this one is kind of personal for Sunnyvale, because I want everybody here in the room to vote yes on Measure E, which is the $290 million bond, so that we can build a new library under the current rules. That has to pass with a 2/3 majority. The way it has worked out is that if Prop 5 passes on the same night that Prop E does, the threshold for that Prop E just goes from 2/3 to 55%, thereby increasing the chances that this very important Prop E will pass. That's a very tactical explanation of how Prop 5 would impact the city of Sunnyvale. So vote yes on Measure E for the library, and then also vote yes on Measure 5 to get that threshold from 2/3 to 55%. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes, I also support, Prop 5. Going to that 55% is better for municipalities, and it's what school districts are already able to do. Looking at trying to fund affordable housing, looking to fund infrastructure projects. We have our library. Our library is now, almost 65 years old and has already been renovated and added on multiple times. But that makes sure that passes with a little bit more threshold. And, to me, it's making sure that cities have that long-term vision and can go out for bonds to make sure that time is money at the end of the day. The sooner that they get that bond, they can start work, as opposed to saving for it. And ultimately, at a certain point, that cost keeps going up. So, to me, Prop 5 is good for all of California. And hopefully the whole state is behind it. I think it'll make a big difference for cities all over the state.
Thank you. We're going to continue talking about Measure E. So 60 seconds more on this. Measure E asks voters, should voters approve a $290 million general obligation bond to develop a new 120,000 square foot library? We know that both of you support it, so tell us more about why.
Sure. So the biggest thing is, the main library that we currently have was built in 1960. And there's been additions, there's been renovations. Ultimately, we're putting Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids at this point. If you talk to librarians, which I'm there quite often, hearing about the plumbing issues, hearing about the electrical issues, closing that service to our community because of problems there isn't what we should be doing from a city standpoint. So from a Prop E, from a Measure E standpoint, to me, it is critical. Libraries are for everyone. I've been a big proponent, and I have lawn signs in the car if anybody would like one. But for me, it's important to support the vision of a new library. The needs of a library have changed in the last 65 years, and Sunnyvale, being the heart of Silicon Valley, needs to meet the changes and the needs of a growing and changed community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Russ?
right on, Larry. Good stuff. Look, if you're in the room right now, vote yes on Measure E. If you're watching this tape later on, vote yes on Measure E. This is really important. I worked with Mayor Klein and Councilmember Mellinger to co-author the ballot argument, which I was proud to sign. So read the ballot argument. Everything in there is totally valid. I'm the parent of 2 kids, and when they were younger, we would go to the library, to the kids section, and check out books, 40 books at a time. There are people in this room who know what I'm talking about. And right, for young children, that's really important to just have this ocean of books available to pick up and read and return and refresh. The other angle I've always taken on the library is about seismic capabilities. I talk about this all the time. Look, it's a matter of fact that we're going to have a big earthquake at some point here in Silicon Valley. It's just a matter of fact. And the current seismic capabilities of our current library, that building's going to shake to the ground. So we need a new seismically capable library as a rally point in the middle of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Russ, keep that mic. We got 60 seconds for the next question. It is a different topic. How will you make yourself available to residents once you are elected mayor?
The same way that I do today, which is to be available for meeting requests, to get out and talk to people, and do what I'm doing now. I've said I love precinct walking. I've dropped off over 5,000 flyers on front doors and had 1,000 front door conversations. Really get to hear a lot from Sunnyvale residents about what's on their mind, and also have an opportunity to talk about important things like their vision of public safety and what I would do about it, to talk about the importance of Measure E. So I'd say it's more of the same. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to serve. And I love talking to residents, hearing what they have to say, and synthesizing their voices into actionable policy and projects for the city of Sunnyvale. So thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yeah, so I am all about working with the community, and I find it a little shocking if Russ is getting 1 out of 5 doors open as he's walking precincts. But for me, collaborating with the community has been part of my job from day one. When I got elected and sworn in September of 2016, my very first Friday, I had office hours at Bean Scene on Murphy Avenue, and I've had thousands of people there over the last 8 years of having office hours. And then I changed that to virtual live stream addresses that I still do to this day, to get out the word, to answer people's questions, to make sure that people understand what's happening in the city. And in that collaboration, that's where the pet parade came from. It's people coming to my office hours and having new ideas, wanting to get more involved. Lots of our new commissioners that are on our boards and commissions met with me first saying, I want to get more involved in the city. And that's what the job of mayor is. It's trying to lift up your whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry will answer this next question with 60 seconds. How will you improve communication with the community in regards to police activity, fire activity, and property crimes?
So, that's one of the things that I've already talked to the new city manager about. For some reason, we've stopped using Nixle. And I don't know if people utilize Nixle, but Nixle is supposed to be the information tool from a city standpoint. So from a city standpoint, whenever there's a traffic issue, from a public works standpoint of a tree falling in the roadway or a fire, that should actually be utilized. It's not utilized right now to that level, and I've already talked to the city manager and the chief that should be one of the things, that the tools that we have to get the word out within our community. And from a city standpoint, it's good to see that we have a generally safe city. We ranked the 9th safest city in the nation again last month. But issues happen, and it's trying to figure out how to get the word out to our community, whether or not that's accidents or fires, but it's all the things. It's communicating outward is something that the city needs to do better.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, thank you. I think DPS does a pretty good job in pushing out important information on a timely basis through our social media channels. I think everybody will see posts from DPS about a water main break or an intersection that has to be closed. And they do a good job of pushing that out simultaneously on Twitter and on Nextdoor and on Facebook. May not be a perfect system, and that can be improved on. But I think they do a good job with that. There's also a sort of interesting wrinkle to all of this, and I have some expertise in this as I serve as board chairperson of the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority, which is a real mouthful, but that's the owner operator of the first responder police and fire radio communication system throughout the entire county. Just had a board meeting earlier today about it. And due to various circumstances, it used to be that people could listen to police communications live, real time, and that had to change. It's all been encrypted. So that's been sort of a thing that has hindered the flow of information. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question, we're going to extend to a 90-second answer, and we'll start with Russ. Let's talk about leadership in Sunnyvale. Attracting new people to run for local city councils is crucial for maintaining a vibrant and representative local government. What innovative idea do you have to attract new talent to run for city council?
Yeah, this is a really important question, Elaine. You and I talked about this on our phone conversation when we were getting ready for this whole meeting. So look, we're starting to see this as one of the byproducts of having moved to districts in Sunnyvale, and I bet other cities are seeing the same thing. In 2022, one of our council members, who's doing a great job, was unopposed from District 1. In my district, District 4, my successor, who's going to be Charles C., and she's going to do a fantastic job, is running unopposed. And you're starting to see in districts unopposed races. We see one in the school board race, for example, up in North Sunnyvale for the elementary school district, right? And so if you're a candidate, you might be thinking, oh, this is fantastic. I don't have to run in an election. But that's actually not a good thing. It's not a good thing for democracy. And in my opinion, every contest should be elected, including this one for mayor of the city of Sunnyvale. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. So I just want to put that out there. I'm going to propose a study issue, which we've talked about, which is going to be how do we promote candidates in the city of Sunnyvale so that we have a pipeline of qualified candidates, people who want to run, know what they're getting into, and that value the public service. That's such an important part of all of this. So those are my thoughts on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Yeah, so ultimately, it's, to me, is one of the things is our boards and commissions. So the majority of our council members started on boards and commissions. It's learning that process, and that's one of the things that I do, every week at office hours, is try to get people more involved, and working through Leadership Sunnyvale and other organizations to say, here's an opportunity to get more involved, and that is often the stepping stone. Russ and I were both planning commissioners before this, but the majority of council members that are there now first served on boards and commissions. We're looking to expand conceivably some of those boards and commissions. Ultimately, we're seeing around the Bay Area elections canceled because of a limited number of people that decided to run for council. And ultimately, it's not an easy job, but it's making sure that people care enough about their community to give back and undertake that effort. And so it's educating them. It's educating them about the pluses and minuses. We have one of our candidates in the room today that I talked about, when people are running, I talked to them extensively on the pluses and the minuses about running for election, whether or not it's school board, whether or not it is council. It's trying to make sure people are aware. And, ultimately, hopefully we have enough diversity within our city, getting more people involved in our commissions increases that pool that we need at the end of the day to try to make sure that we have better council members. We have the most diverse council now than we've ever had in our city's history, and that's because of moving to districts.
Thank you. Next question is 60 seconds. We'll start with Larry. What is your favorite thing about Sunnyvale?
So my favorite thing about Sunnyvale is our downtown. It's why I got involved with the city 20 years ago when we were defining that new vision. And ultimately, that vision is far better than what we envisioned 20 years ago. And it took a while. It took some lawsuits and, going into bankruptcy and a few other things. But the vision of what we have downtown is exactly what every city along the Caltrain station line should be doing. It's that walkable, livable community. It's having the the big box store, Target, Whole Foods, AMC Theater. It's restaurants, it's retail, it's making sure that you have a truly walkable community. And the most positive part of that, which when we kicked this off, I thought would never happen, is converting Murphy Avenue into a pedestrian zone. That to me was a game changer for our city. It had been talked about for years and years, and finally, because of COVID, we tried it, and now everyone loves it. And I think that is the heart and soul of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, I agree with the mayor in terms of how incredible Sunnyvale downtown is turning out to be, the vision realized. Here are some things that are unique to Sunnyvale that I love. I love the Department of Public Safety, the integrated public safety officers who are cops and are also firefighters. That's an incredible thing for Sunnyvale. I love the ethos of the city of Sunnyvale. And let me try to convey this in words. Sunnyvale to me is not a flashy, look at me kind of self-promoting city. We're very hardworking in Sunnyvale. We just like to get the job done and move on to how do we improve things and move forward as a city. And some examples of that, I think, are Sunnyvale Community Services. I love Sunnyvale Community Services here in our community. And another example is a great company nearby on Kiefer Road, Intuitive Surgical. They're not a Hollywood type glamour company. They just make a great surgical robot and just go about their business. So these are things I love about Sunnyvale.
Thank you. All right, we're on our last question. We've done really well, gone through a lot of different topics. What question do you wish we had asked you during this forum? And please answer your own question. We're starting with Russ. You can go to 90 seconds. We're ahead of schedule.
Oh,
90
yeah.
seconds.
Well, then Elaine, just make it 5 minutes and it's all good, right? So here's what I thought a question could be is, Russ, what are you most proud of legislatively in your 8 years on city council? And I'll weave a little story here for you that I promise will get to a conclusion. It was back in 2021 during our budget process, and city council kind of got into this weird funk where we had a block of council members that were just like voting no on everything in the budget, right? And there were two things in our preliminary budget hearings that were really kind of important. The first one was to hire a term limited manager for equity, access, and inclusion projects in the city of Sunnyvale. Tried to move that forward, got blocked. The second one for me was implementing the Corn Palace Park. The Corn Palace Park, of course, is the location of the old Corn Palace on Toyon Boulevard off of Lawrence Expressway. And that was in the budget not to happen for another 15 years. So we tried to run both of those projects through the budget. The block of three voted no, and you only need one more vote to kill the thing. So I called Mason Fong, former council member, on the phone. And I said, look, man, this is baloney. We need to merge these two projects together, get them through and support each other. And I'm proud to say legislatively, we did. And even today, there's still some griping about it. But I'm here to tell you, when the Corn Palace Park opens by December 31st of this year, there's one person at this table who voted yes on it. And please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Larry?
Sure. And for me, it's a similar question. What are you most proud of as mayor? And I have a lot of accomplishments over the last 6 years. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. One of the biggest things is building community. And I have a lot of little things. I was selected as a Bloomberg Harvard mayor. So I was selected as one of 40 mayors from around the world to get additional training. And a lot of this is on the job training for council, to actually have executive coaching, to actually have, case studies to look at how cities respond has been fantastic. And that taught me, better community outreach. And that's the other half of this, is being successful in building community. It's building community with residents. And I've made it my priority over the last 8 years to make sure our diverse community is seen and heard, and being in a lot of the events for the first time, the first council member in many of those events, and making myself available regardless of what language you speak, where you come from. To me, that is really critical, and those partnerships at the local level, at the federal level, at the state level. Take a look at my supporters and endorsements. That to me is how you get work done. So it's building community. It's that network of availability, putting the right people together, spreading those seeds to the wind, and making sure that things grow within our city. So take a look at that at larryformayor.com, and hopefully you will vote for me in November. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. That concludes our questions. I'd like to ask my teammate over there if she would please put the slides back up to put the website. Larry just mentioned his. Go back one slide, please, if you can. Yes. So just want to make sure everyone can see the website for Larry, as he mentioned, larryformayor.com, and Russ Melton is meltonformayor.com. We encourage you to go to their websites to learn more about it. What's it supposed to say? It's not correct. Okay, so tell me what it should say, sir. That's okay.
Thanks. It's all good, team. Thank you. Anybody can find it with just a Google search. So it's meltonforsvmayor.com. It's all good. Thank you.
Thank you for spotting that, and it's good we got it cleared up right away. Good. All right, so we would like to ask if you would stay for just a moment longer before we end off the forum. Wanted to go over a few more resources for you in the election. As they mentioned, there's a lot on the ballot, and there might be some more things you want to learn a little bit more about. So next slide, please. So the local league is doing forums for the school district and for council. So you can see if you'd like to take a picture with your phone. It's also on our website, but it has all of the different forums. One thing about going to districts is you have that many more forums. So we've decided to give each group their own forum where possible. And so I believe, let's see, we have District 6 on October 7th and District 2 on October 8th, and those will be on Zoom. Let me just double check. The other thing is the ballot measure, where we explain the pros and the cons of the ballot measures, but we also explain what is it about, what's the money behind it, what your yes vote means, and what your no vote means. We're going to have a live one in Cupertino on October 6th at 3 o'clock at the Cupertino Library. And then we're going to do a Zoom one that will be recorded on October 16th at 7 o'clock. So we encourage you to join. You can see it on our website, lwvcs.org, to register for the event. And the next slide has some additional links that you might want to be aware of. Next slide is, drum roll. There it is. Good. All nonpartisan fact-checked information, Ballotpedia, Easy Voter Guide, Vote 411, and more. So do take a picture of that as well. And the next slide encourages you to remember to vote on what day? That's right, by November 5th. Exactly. So do make sure your ballots are in on time. Last but not least, the next slide, a major thank you to the candidates. Let's give them a hand. Very well done. Really appreciate it. We also want to thank Sunnyvale Community Services for the gracious letting us use this wonderful space. Thank you. And the Sunnyvale Home Mobile Park, let me try it again. The Sunnyvale Mobile Home Park Alliance and SNAIL. Thank you both for all of your help and support in this forum. And to my fellow league members, thank you as well. Thank you all for attending. Please share the link. We're going to have the recording on the website. We want to hit more than 1,000 views. So please help us get the word out so people can hear this excellent conversation and the answers that each of the candidates gave tonight. Thank you and good night.